Marcus had everything: a loving family, a warm home, dreams of college. But when his mother's cancer destroyed their savings, he found himself sleeping in doorways with nothing but the clothes on his back. For months, he wandered the streets invisible to the world, until one rainy night changed everything. A single act of kindness from a stranger would not only save his life, but transform him into someone who now helps hundreds of people just like he once was. Marcus spent his evenings at the kitchen table, working on college application essays while his mother graded library books nearby. His father would come home from the hardware store with paint under his fingernails, tired but smiling. They lived in a house with creaky floors and a garden where his mother grew tomatoes every summer. Sunday dinners meant homemade bread and conversations about Marcus's future. He would be the first in their family to earn a college degree. The doctor's appointment changed everything. His mother went in for a routine check and came home pale, clutching appointment cards for specialists. Marcus watched his parents huddle over insurance documents, their voices growing quieter each night. The kitchen table became covered with medical bills instead of homework. Numbers that made no sense to a 17-year-old boy but clearly terrified his parents. His father closed the hardware store he had run for 15 years. Everything valuable in their house disappeared piece by piece. His mother's wedding ring, his father's tools, the television, even Marcus's guitar. Marcus stopped working at the movie theater to drive his mother to chemotherapy appointments. He held her hand while poison dripped into her veins, hoping it would save her life. She died on a Tuesday morning while snow fell outside the hospital window. Marcus felt her fingers grow cold in his palm. The funeral director handed his father a bill that made him sit down heavily in a plastic chair. 3 months later, men came to put a foreclosure notice on their front door. His father started drinking whiskey instead of coffee in the mornings. One Thursday evening, Marcus found a note on the kitchen counter. His father couldn't watch them lose everything. He couldn't face the neighbors or the creditors or the shame of what they had become. The note said he was sorry. Marcus stood on the sidewalk with one garbage bag and $17. Mrs. Henderson next door closed her curtains when she saw him. The bus station bathroom had fluorescent lights that buzzed all night. He kept thinking someone would call him back, offer him their couch, remember that he used to be a good student with a bright future. The library security guard recognized him after 3 days. The same guard who used to wave at his mother every morning. Now he asked Marcus to leave before other patrons complained. Former classmates crossed streets to avoid him. He had become someone people preferred not to see. The first snowfall came in October, weeks earlier than usual. Marcus learned that winter on the streets wasn't just cold, it was deadly. He watched a man named Jimmy develop black spots on his fingers that never healed. Another woman disappeared one morning after a particularly harsh night, and nobody asked questions. Under the highway bridge, Marcus found others who had learned to survive. Pete, an old man with kind eyes, showed him how to fold cardboard so water wouldn't seep through. He taught Marcus to stuff newspapers inside his jacket, creating layers of air that trapped body heat. Pete had been living this way for 7 years. Marcus caught glimpses of himself in shop windows and stopped recognizing the person staring back. His cheeks had hollowed out, his clothes hung like curtains on his shrinking body. His hands trembled constantly now, though he couldn't tell if it was from cold or hunger or something deeper. Some days brought unexpected grace. A woman handed him a turkey sandwich without saying a word. A businessman dropped $5 in his cup while talking on his phone. A little girl smiled and waved from her mother's arms, too young to understand why adults looked away. Other days brought cruelty that stung worse than the wind. Teenagers threw bottles from moving cars. A store owner hosed down the doorway where Marcus had been sitting, soaking him in freezing water. Police took his only blanket and told him to keep moving, though there was nowhere to go. Marcus kept his mother's photograph folded in his jacket pocket. He would talk to her picture in quiet moments, telling her about Pete's kindness or the sandwich lady, or how much he missed Sunday dinners. Sometimes he imagined her voice responding, gentle but worried. The worst night came when temperatures dropped below zero and every shelter had turned him away. Marcus pressed himself into an alley between 2 buildings, shaking so violently he couldn't think straight. He realized he might not see morning. For the first time, he understood why his father had chosen to disappear. He thought about joining his parents, about how much easier it would be to stop fighting. The pain of breathing, of existing, felt heavier than the fear of letting go. Marcus closed his eyes and whispered to whoever might be listening, but something whispered back. Maybe his mother's memory, maybe stubborn hope. Morning would come. His story wasn't finished. When gray dawn crept over the city, Marcus opened his eyes and chose to live another day. Sarah walked through the outreach center on her third day, carrying clipboards and learning names. Most social workers stayed busy with familiar faces, people they had worked with for months. But Marcus sat apart from the others, quiet and still. His clothes were dirty but not destroyed. He kept his back straight even when exhaustion showed in his eyes. She sat down beside him without asking permission. Marcus pulled away slightly, waiting for her to tell him the rules or ask him to move somewhere else. Instead, Sarah looked at him directly and said, "I'm Sarah. What's your name?" Her voice was calm, patient. Marcus told her everything. About his mother's illness, the medical bills that destroyed his family, his father's disappearance. Sarah listened without checking her watch or taking notes. She didn't interrupt with advice or promises she couldn't keep. When Marcus finished talking, she simply nodded and said she understood. Every Tuesday and Thursday morning, Sarah appeared with coffee and a bag lunch. She never missed a day, never made excuses. Marcus began watching for her car on the street corner. She would sit with him for 20 minutes asking how he slept if he needed anything specific. No forms to fill out, no requirements to meet. Sarah told him about her own childhood bouncing between foster homes. She knew what it felt like when adults made promises they didn't keep. She understood that people didn't choose to live on streets because they were lazy or broken. Sometimes life simply fell apart faster than anyone could fix it. When Marcus felt ready to try again, Sarah drove him to government offices. She helped him get new identification cards to replace the ones lost months ago. She sat with him in waiting rooms and spoke up when clerks tried to dismiss him. She knew which programs had openings and which caseworkers actually cared about their clients. The transitional housing room had white walls, a narrow bed, and a desk by the window. Marcus stood in the doorway for several minutes before stepping inside. That evening he stood under hot water in a real shower until steam filled the bathroom. He cried tears that mixed with soap and months of accumulated pain. Sarah helped Marcus practice answering interview questions. She drove him to job training sessions and celebrated when he received his first paycheck from the community center. But more than housing or employment, Sarah gave Marcus something he had lost completely. She reminded him that his life mattered, that he deserved kindness, that tomorrow could be different from today. Marcus now runs a nonprofit organization from a small office downtown. Over 300 people have found stable housing through his programs. Each person he helps reminds him of those cold nights under the bridge. He knows their stories because he lived them himself. The people who fall the furthest sometimes climb back the strongest. Marcus understands hunger, rejection, and hopelessness in ways that textbooks cannot teach. His broken past became his greatest tool for healing others. When you see someone struggling, remember Marcus and Sarah. Your small act of kindness might become the moment someone chooses to keep fighting for another day.